Long time no see, everybody. What's going on? So I wanted to hop on here to talk about something that has really been boggling my mind lately, and that is the trial of Hannah Gutierrez, who is the armor on the set of Rust, against the state of New Mexico. And when I get into this, the things to, and you'll understand why, the things that kind of like befuddle me are not just one person from this entire case that you can say, oh yeah, this person is guilty, done deal, right? Not necessarily. This was a bad, probably the most perfect example of everything you shouldn't do on a film set. And granted, this is coming from a dude who has worked art department. I've worked with armorers before, and I ran safety before, because that's just part of the job and what it entails. So let's actually get into this case, shall we? So, to start off, let's go through what we know. So for those of you who don't know the Rust incident, there was a film that was shot in New Mexico, independent film. Well, yeah, I guess as independent as you could possibly get. I'm pretty sure the budget was it wasn't that high, but given the circumstances, you'll understand why there should have been more. So what happened was, one day on a film shoot that has been going on for 3 weeks, Alec Baldwin, who is the star and the producer of the film, there was a blocking that had to be done that day of the incident. And what happened beforehand was Alec Baldwin used a prop gun, which is still a very fully functioning gun that can shoot real bullets, except when you put in, blanks or dummy rounds, it renders, well, dummy rounds just render the gun like you can shoot it, but nothing actually there's no projectile, there's nothing that will extract a gunfire. Blanks, on the other hand, do, except there's no projectile. There's no bullet inside there. So it's just you hear the gun shot and you see the gun shot, but there's nothing coming out of the gun. Which is still very unsafe, by the way, to shoot. And what happened was, the actor Alec Baldwin was blocking with a gun, and he pulled, according to him, he pulled the hammer back, and the gun fired right into the director of photography, Helena Hutchins, and the director, Joel Souza. Basically, killing the DP, Helena Hutchins. And it definitely maimed, at least harmed, Joel Souza, the director. And so a lot of things are going on, right? So first and foremost, the Alec Baldwin did have a case going on, right? Or at least it was settled before. That it was like a involuntary manslaughter, and he, I guess, got out of it. But there's another case that he's going to be part of later, I think in the summer, that he is going to defend himself on, essentially. Not him himself, but with his lawyers and whatever. And so, to put things in perspective, I really thought about how I was going to talk about this. And working in the film industry for almost 6 years coming up. 5 of those years have been with art department for me. And when I get into this isn't like me attacking anyone, right? This isn't like I don't have anything personal against anybody in film or even art department or even in this case for that matter. I'm just seeing what the facts are in front of me and essentially gathering my thoughts as to what I can infer with all this information, right? So, and on top of that, just to save myself from sanity, I don't want to keep up with so many names. I feel like there's just so many names, too many names. So I'm just going to name them by who their position is. So Hannah Gutierrez is the armor on this set of Rust. Right. So, and this is where the case that has began against her, or from her against the state of New Mexico, which she has pleaded not guilty for the charge of involuntary manslaughter. That's what the case is about. So they've gone into this trial, and we've gotten already 2 days in, and it is pretty fucking, I don't want to say revealing, but enlightening to see how fucked up this was, this whole entire movie shoot from the very beginning. Like, from the very beginning. Because the set of Rust was deemed unsafe by the camera team. So the camera team voiced their complaints from emails, text messages, maybe one or the other, or both, I don't know. But there was written documentation that was given to the unit production manager and other producers, I imagine. And so the camera crew, before this entire incident happened, voiced their concerns on safety because there was 3 misfires, apparently. 2 of them, I don't know what the third one is all about, but I know 2 of them, one of them was from the prop master who accidentally misfired from a prop gun. Not the gun that Alec Baldwin used that killed the DP, but the one that another gun that was used on that set. And it misfired. And that's a really big problem, right? And she, whether or not it was a mistake or whatever, an oversight, it doesn't matter. It was very, very stupid and very blatantly dumb to do that. So when that happened, another incident happened where a stunt double, I don't know for who, I was told it was Alec Baldwin's stunt double, but I've read articles where it was different, or it wasn't even mentioned that it was his stunt double. So a stunt double also fired a gun, I think a different gun, and that too also misfired. So there were 2 accounts already that were misfired, and the third one I don't fully remember, but it was definitely probably in the same vein of like it was accidentally fired, it wasn't supposed to, yada yada yada, right? So with that happening, the biggest problem was that the camera department already saw that there was a very big problem in terms of safety on the set. There were other complaints. I don't want to get into it because it's not relevant to this. So if you want to look it up, you absolutely should. But for the sake of time, safety was the biggest concern, one of the biggest concerns. And according to the set, they weren't aware of any, unsafe practices or, not enough safety protocols being ran through the set. So let's dig deeper into this. Dave Halls, who is the first AD, was also the safety coordinator. And his story is a little more interesting because given what the circumstance was, he was in charge of coordinating any and all safety precautions that go in and out of that film set, including guns, including, horses and what have you, right? So it's a lot. And he had to be the first AD to do that as well. And that's already like a tough job. Now, going back to the armor had 2 jobs as well. She had to be an assistant to props, and she was the armor. For those of you who don't know, armor is like in charge of any weapons that are on set, in particular firearms, and how it's supposed to be safely used and all of that, and they are in charge of handling all of those weapons. I've worked with a few armors before, and they take their shit very, very seriously. So it's hard to do that job along with being an assistant prop, because when you're doing assistant prop stuff, you're going through anything that the actors touch and making sure, whatever they use or whatever they hold or touch or whatever has to be accounted for. And that has a whole ass fucking inventory just by that alone, just by props alone, right? So, the armor had a lot of shit going through, the day-to-day operations of what her jobs were. So again, already set up to fail. And the camera department, the camera team, going back to them for a second, left the set. They left the night before the incident happened. So that morning, the camera team essentially said, "Deuces, y'all ain't gonna care for our safety, and other things that happen. Goodbye." And then so while that was happening, they were scrambling to get more people on that set with, a different camera team or what have you. And for those of you who are wondering if the DP also stuck around, she did. Why? I can't tell you, other than that she has worked, at least according to Alec, he has worked with her before, the DP. And usually the DP works with camera team. If, for those of you who don't know, they are like literally the people that they work with, and including like lighting and whatnot. So she stuck around. For what reason, I don't know, other than that she was already like kind of attached to it, and there's probably circumstances in which she couldn't leave that set, right? But camera team did, because of what I just mentioned with safety and all that. So when that happened, they resumed shooting as normal as it possibly can, I guess. And then so that morning when everything was being set up, this is where things get a little murky, right? The armor had the weapon on the set. So when she had the weapon on the set, she was Alec Baldwin's weapon, his gun, revolver. She was detailing it or cleaning it, and there was like debris or something that like the barrel had like some, something that was stuck in it, what have you. Although I guess it was because of like different size bullets, but I don't know. So she was in charge of cleaning and maintaining that gun, and loaded the gun with dummy rounds. So when that happened, she she handed the gun to the first AD, who is also safety coordinator, and that armorer was left outside of that hot set where the incident happened. And hot set, for those of you who don't know, it's just a set where not a lot of people can go through. It's like where camera is, and once like art department set dresses everything, it officially basically becomes a hot set. So any set dressing that gets manipulated or moved or whatever should be, I mean, ideally would be on the responsibility of art department, right? So, and they were just blocking. Now, why did they have the gun to block the scene? I don't know, because cameras were not rolling. So it was just rehearsal. You know, you wouldn't need the camera, and with that, if you didn't need to roll the camera, there's probably no reason to have the gun in the first place. And I've talked about this with other people who are also in the film industry, and usually you would use like a sponge or like some sort of like dummy gun, like foam gun or something like that, to mimic a real gun, because that's basically all you need when you're running through a scene like that, right? It's a little silly to have a real fucking gun on the set, but that's all they fucking had, at least what the armor had and props were handling. Few things. So when the gun was handed to the first AD then handed it to Alec, who then pulled the hammer back, and that was that, you know? And the best way I can probably describe this is Alec himself describing it, just so we're all in the clear. This is what he had to say.
Kept doing this, and so then I said to her,
this is what he had to say in terms of the incident, by the way, right? So in this interview with George Stephanopoulos, shout out to Stephanopoulos, he explains that he was blocking the scene with the DP and the director, and they were by monitor. They were right behind camera, framing up the scene and whatnot. They weren't rolling. There was nothing being shot. It was just a regular ass blocking, you know, for lights and for camera, whatever, you know, or for the actors, just so they know exactly where their mark is going to be when, you know, they play the scene out. So this is Alec Baldwin explaining that and what his direction was with the gun and what happened to that gun.
now in this scene, I'm going to cock the gun. And I said, do you want to see that? And she said, yes. So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
At the moment.
So he pulled down the hammer and the gun went off. That's what he said, right? So this is the interesting part. One of the many interesting parts of this case. You ready for this? What forensic testing reveals about the revolver on set Rust shooting. Okay. So this is basically what went down. So accidental discharge testing determined that the firearm used in the shooting, a 45 Colt, 45 long Colt caliber Pieta, whatever the fuck that means, single action revolver could not have fired without the trigger being pulled, the FBI report shows. So this is where I start to fucking really scratch my head and wonder what the fuck is going on here, right? Because in order for that gun to be pulled, there needed to be a trigger, right? So when the hammer gets pulled back, the trigger fires. You can't fire the gun without, pulling the trigger back, or sorry, without, so you can't fire a gun without pulling the hammer back and pulling the trigger. But Alex said, no, I just pulled the hammer back and then that's it. Lights out. Huh? What? You know what I mean? That shit just doesn't make any fucking sense to me, right? So with that, the next question is, okay, well, what about the bullets? The bullets is very interesting. What's up with that, right? So that's where this case kind of comes in, the Armour versus the state of New Mexico, right? Involuntary manslaughter case. So the Armour got bullets from this place, from this place called PDQ Props. And what they do is that they have like, prop guns and bullets and whatnot, blanks, to be specific, and dummy rounds, that are usually supplied to film sets and whatnot. Now, did PDQ Props have, other types of bullets? I don't know. But the thing to understand is that there was live rounds on that film set. That was a huge part of this case. So the people who were on that set, on that shoot, who were all interrogated between the first AD, the prop master, the Armour, and Alec Baldwin himself, including other actors like Jensen Ackles, who was also part of the film. Shout out to Supernatural, for those of you who are Supernatural fans, or Soldier Boy fans from The Boys. Jensen Ackles was also on that shoot, and he also came into the police interrogation and explained, his side of the story. And every single one of them had no idea that there were live rounds on that set. No clue. That was also part of the FBI investigation, was that there were live rounds on that shoot, and not only just one, there were multiple. Now, the exact number, I don't know. When I watched the prop master interrogation, I don't know why I keep saying interrogate. I don't know legal shit. I don't know what the proper terms are. So, I'm sure lawyer nerds are gonna fucking, dunk on me in the comments. But that interrogation, or at least that questioning, she had no idea that there were live rounds in there. Well, how do you know when you are working props, right? Well, the bullets, where they came from that prop house. That's where the bullets came from. So if the bullets came from there, and neither the Armour nor the prop master or anybody in that art department really knew, between art director, art PA, it doesn't matter. Like, I guess none of them knew there were live rounds on that set or on that shoot. Where were the live rounds found? All over a prop cart, where usually you store all your props and you wheel them out through the set, just so it's like you're not constantly running to a truck and grabbing them and then running back and forth. It's just kind of simplifies everything and whatever, right? So there were just live ammunition strewn about, apparently, and no one had any realization that there were live rounds on that set. So the biggest question in this entire fucking case, including the case with the Armour trial, is where the fuck did these live rounds come from? How did it get there? We don't know. So this is also where I'm really fucking confused at, right? Because then the Armour is the one who is being thrown under the bus for all of this, right? Because she's the one on trial. She's the one who's getting the involuntary manslaughter charge. And so she has to defend herself, right? And so the prop house, PDQ Props, who was ran by this guy named Seth, I guess, Seth Kenny, who was the one who supplied the bullets and whatnot. He is not under questioning. And as far as I knew, I watched all of the interrogations. I don't know if Seth had one. I couldn't find it for some reason. And so I got all of that information from Emily Baker, who is like a phenomenal who has a phenomenal YouTube channel. She's a lawyer, and she goes through all of these like court cases, not just this one, but like so many other ones. She even covered like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard case as well, or trial. And she's awesome. Shout out to her. And she broke down all of it, and she mentioned that Seth essentially kind of like he pushed any and all responsibility from himself onto the shoot and not really take any form of like accountability during his questioning or time or anybody, right? So PDQ Props was investigated, and the thing that I guess they came back with was that there was not, I mean, there were like those bullets. I'm not sure if it was, I can't remember if it was like live rounds in PDQ Props, but basically it was like a prop house just full of blank rounds. And I don't think live rounds were in PDQ. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think so. Because that would have been a big fucking thing to make clear. But somehow live bullets came onto the set, whether or not it's from PDQ or from the armor or from the prop master or anybody, we just don't know. We have no fucking idea whatsoever, right? So that's where everything is sort of kind of left in the dust. So, but more importantly, other than the mystery of who brought the live round, was the fact of like how any part of this could have easily been prevented from not only the armor, right? Like the armor, yes, it is her responsibility, or typically armor's responsibility, to make sure that, you know, there aren't any live rounds or everything is safe, what have you, right? She is not the only one to ensure that safety. There was also the first AD, who was the safety coordinator. He could have easily pointed anything out and called you know, something unsafe, or to readdress whatever, right? If something was not safe on the set. There was nothing from him. There was no call of that, but yet the camera department, before that incident, voiced their complaints. He never mentioned any of that in his police interrogation. So we're just led to believe that the first AD was also left in the dark of everything, right? Which is a little silly, because the first AD runs the day-to-day operations and the schedule for the film shoot and makes sure that everyone is kind of going through it all on time and whatnot, right? So, it's just all very fucking strange. It's all very strange, and we still have so many questions. And the fact that safety was not only just neglected, but it was just kind of tossed out the window, like, because there was no time. And I don't know about anybody, any of you who worked in the film industry who have experienced this, but I have definitely experienced, not to the level of a gun, but definitely unsafe practices on a film set that was very, very dumb to do. and should have been brought up by, you know, any line in production, right? And if you do voice your opinions or voice any complaints, usually, at least the stories I've heard and some of the shit that I've seen, you either keep your mouth shut or you do voice your complaints, and they either let you go, fire you, or you get reassigned to do something else. And that was not the case with Rust. Rust, it was just like one safety compromise after another, after another, after another, all for this to culminate into what happened on that incident, on that day. And it's fucked up. Like, there's no reason for this to happen by any stretch of the imagination. So not only anybody could have either called this out, but I don't think anybody was prepared to even check or fully understand that there were either live rounds on that set for some reason, or there was just not enough preparation and not enough care to really make sure that every single thing that goes in and out of that set that is unsafe, like a firearm or something, is accounted for tenfold. You know, like you memorize like more than your own fucking car keys or your phone. You know what I mean? You make sure that you know exactly where it's at all times. And there was a safe that was stored into it, but of course, when it's being taken out, there was also other guns that were taken out. One thing I wanted to mention too that I thought was very fucking interesting was when that incident happened, just minutes after, the prop master who, you know, was working with Hannah, working with the armorer, where the armorer was also the assistant prop master, or the assistant to props, right? At least an assistant to her, even though the armorer knows more about armoring than, I guess, prop stuff, art department stuff, right? Probably enough, but you know what I mean. So when the incident happened, the prop master had other guns on set too that were also loaded with those same bullets that were in Alec Baldwin's gun. So with those bullets that she had on other guns, she took those guns and dumped those bullets into the fucking trash. She literally dumped a crime scene evidence that could have very well pinpoint where these live rounds came from, but it was dumped into the trash. The bullets. Those blanks. Or dumb, whatever. It like that was going to be the thing that was going to lead to whoever or whatever got those live rounds into the film set to begin with. Now, was that the done all be all? Probably not, but it would have easily fucking helped the case in so many ways. So why did that happen? Well, moments before she dumped the bullets into the garbage can, the prop master called up the prop house where Seth Kenny is who runs that prop house, who supplied the bullets and all of that. She called him, but we don't know what the phone call was. This was talked about in the opening statements from the defense on this trial, at least with the armor case. And the defense attorney representing the armorer said that there was that phone call that was placed, and we don't know what the phone call was. But just a couple or few minutes after, the bullets were just dumped into a trash can. So we don't know what the fuck is going on. So this is what I'm talking about. Why is it that this person, this armorer, is being the only one held accountable for all of this? Meanwhile, the production house or the prop house, Seth, he just completely took all the responsibility and put it on the set. So then the police questioned everybody, and including, got a whole team to investigate the house as well, the prop house. And again, it doesn't lead to where the live round even came from, because nothing came from it, right? So because live rounds were on the set, they couldn't link it back to anyone else, although I feel like you probably could. And I know Seth is going to be a witness, or at least going to be on the stand to give, to be cross-examined by all the lawyers and stuff like that, right? Including the director. That will happen hopefully soon. So yeah, I just feel like there were so many more people responsible for this, and as the defense said, used the armor to be the scapegoat, to completely put any and all accountability onto the armor. Where, yes, the armor is part of the problem, she ain't the whole problem. Yes, she was supposed to run through the safety and make sure that the bullets were, blanks or dummy rounds. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be blanks. Yeah, they were supposed to be blanks. And because they wanted to see the actual shot, right? But during blocking and during rehearsing, there was no reason to do that. There was no reason to do that whatsoever. And Alec Baldwin made it seem like that was put upon the armor to that she had the bullets inside that gun, or she put those bullets inside the gun and then handed it to the first AD without knowing what happened to that gun in between handing it off to the first AD and then the first AD handing it to Alec, and that was that. Now, what did the first AD say in the interrogation? He just said he handed the gun, and that was that, right? And then after the incident happened, the first AD then took that gun, went outside, and talked to the armor about all this. And mind you, while this is all happening, the fucking prop master went and took the other guns that were supposed to be played, I guess, that day or later in the scene or whatever, in different scenes. She took those guns and dumped all of the bullets from those guns into the fucking trash. So again, we don't know where the live rounds come from. And every single person on that set who was supposed to be accountable for all those said bullets and said safety and all this were all just sort of like, I don't know, I was sort of there, but I wasn't there, and all I knew was I accounted for this weapon and that weapon, and that's about it. Like, again, there was no ill intention either, by the way. There was no like foul play or whatever. There was no one person that could have just tossed a live round and just wanted to fuck with somebody. Like, that just seems so silly. As well as there's no reason for other departments in that film set, let's say, I don't know, hair and makeup or costume, to go and fuck around with the props, right? That makes no sense. So, with that being said, there's no reason to not only hold the armor accountable, but everyone else part of that production accountable, including, might be a hot take, but including Alec Baldwin. You see, Alec Baldwin is also a producer of that set. And in that George Stephanopoulos interview that I showed, he said that he's only in charge, in terms of producing, he's only in charge of the actors. Which, fine, that's whatever. But for those of you who don't know, usually for like safety protocols and safety meetings and whatnot, they will either be emailed through the call sheet. So like you would see it attached to a call sheet, or it'll be like a separate email saying, hey, we're going to hold safety meetings, or we're going to have like, a safety meeting on a certain gun or a certain weapon or a certain stunt, whatever it is, that is going to be documented and accounted for. Well, he's a producer. He got those emails. They all did. So why wasn't that being considered? Why wouldn't anybody consider that Alec was also part of the problem as well? Now, again, this is not me trying to attack anybody. I think Alec Baldwin is a fine actor. I think he's all right. I've heard he's a nightmare outside of set. He has an attitude, but that's just what I heard, right? So I don't know as to like how or what or if there was any suspected like tomfoolery ass shit happening in that shoot, or at least on that set, because everything was accounted for, right? Well, as far as, the bullets were concerned and how the weapons were fired, but they didn't take into consideration that there was also other misfirings that happened on that same shoot. And that's why it confuses me as to why this single armor is singled out of everyone else who also handled bullets, handled safety, handled the guns, all of that. And so let me also put something more into perspective that I'm almost forgetting about, right? The first AD went to the cops and apparently got a plea deal for what was this incident, right? He went to get a plea deal, and he only got, I think, 6 months of probation, according to Emily Baker. And he won't be touched. He got immunity, essentially. So if they question him now, he has full immunity of everything. Meanwhile, if the armor, Hannah, is if it shows that she is guilty of involuntary manslaughter, she could face up to a few years in jail. Like actual fucking jail time. Meanwhile, the other person who's also responsible for safety is just scot fucking free. That's it. And he's unfuckwittable. Unless like there was, like I said, suggested, I guess, foul play, but that's like lawyer shit that I am not equipped to understand. So, it just boggles my fucking mind watching this case. And by the way, I'm going to keep watching this, and maybe I'll update if there's like crazy shit happening. I might update when the prop master and the director comes onto the stand and testifies. So I'm curious as to what they have to say, and I'm pretty sure that's going to have some revealing shit. But for the last 2 days of the trial on Thursday and Friday, the first day was all the opening statements with the defense saying that, they're using the armor as a scapegoat, and the prosecutor saying Hannah is the armor is absolutely responsible for all this shit. No other questions asked. It is what it is. Gross negligence, and she should be held accountable for that, right? So this is still unfolding, and it's still fascinating to me, and it's kind of the reason why I feel like this is important for filmmakers to understand, because this is an embarrassment. Like this is truly and unequivocally an embarrassment, and a reason as to why people give a shit about safety. And I've seen people who go through safety meetings even like there was one shoot that I've been on. It was like for it was for a feature, and I was a set deck. And there was this one particular scene that was shot, and they were using hammers as like a weapon. Or one of the actors or one of the characters was using hammer as a weapon. There was literally two. Oh no, not two. There was one overall safety meeting for the shoot in the beginning of the shoot, but when that scene in particular happened, they ran through the safety meeting, like a thorough safety meeting that takes usually like around 2 to 3 minutes on that particular hammer, just a hammer. You know what I mean? And it's a foam hammer. It's like you could throw it at somebody. You won't. I mean, you could probably sting, but it won't. You're not gonna fucking bludgeon somebody with a hammer, with a foam hammer. You know. But there was still a safety meeting being ran through that, and it seemed like on this set there were barely any of that shit, if at all any, because they just didn't have enough time. There wasn't enough, and even the armor went as far as to say that I can't safely do my job if I am working, assistant props. And she voices concern to the production team, to the producers, to everybody, right? And there's written documentation for this. The producers and production essentially told her, it sucks to suck, sweaty. You have to do 2 jobs. It is what it is. Figure it out. So, and then this happens. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not saying that she should be completely innocent for the things that she has done. I feel like everybody should be held accountable, not just her. Everybody. I don't think anybody should go to jail. I don't think anybody should be in fucking prison. I feel like that's a bridge too far. But this is clearly an example of something that can easily be oversighted that would literally take somebody's life. And we're just making movies, man. It is not worth your life for a fucking movie to a thing that we play pretend for. You know what I mean? Like, to get killed from that is just silly. It was the same silly shit with Brandon Lee on The Crow. And for those of you who don't know, it's not a similar situation, but close to where there was a blank bullet being used in a gun, and Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee, was shot in the chest with that said blank gun, pretty close to the chest. Like, the gun was pointed right at the chest and it was pretty close, and instantaneously killed him. And this is what I'm talking about, right? This is the thing that makes me mad the most, because not only that there's such great, CGI, like bullet affected, like CGI that makes like realistic looking, like fucking firing that comes from a gun. That looks really good. Like the lighting and all of that, right? And you can do all that without firing a fucking gun. You know what I mean? And for those of you who are, want to tell me that, like, well, art is art is art. Yeah, sure. But when you have a real fucking gun, you are putting in jeopardy the safety of other people. That shows it is completely not necessary to do. Not when you have, even guns that have like kickback with them. Like when you pull the trigger, it actually has like subtle kickbacks, and you can add the bullet effects afterwards in the edit, in whatever, whatever program editors use to, or CGI program to use and whatnot, right? So why wouldn't everybody just do that? That's also a big fucking question, and still something that filmmakers still want to argue. I've even still work with people who will tell me that, like, oh no, you definitely want real firearms. Nothing's better than having a real firearm with blanks and all that, because it shows the authenticity of the gun and whatnot. I just feel like that's copium. You know what I mean? It's just like that's just silly. It's a very silly thing to want when you get the same exact fucking conclusion, same exact effect without firing a gun, without actually having any bullets in the gun or having anything coming out of a fucking gun that can kill people. You know? It's just, it blows my mind. And since the whole Brandon Lee thing, I've always thought in my brain that, like, well, surely that will never happen again on a film set. Apparently, no. When I worked on this shoot, there was definitely misfires that happen on a film shoot. And they're more common than you fucking think, which is even more mind-blowing because that's fucking all sorts of safety being thrown out the window. Oh, and also, if for those of you who are wondering, like, did the prop master actually work with those guns? Yes, she did. So not only she loaded those guns, but she also, I think, ran safety through some of those guns. But she said in her police interrogation that she handled the cold guns, which means that cold guns have no bullets in them. They're inoperable, right? Like, you can fire them. There's nothing happening. All the bullets are taken out and shit. That's a cold gun. Hot gun is the opposite of that. There's blanks or dummies in them, and ideally, when it's a hot gun, the last thing you want to fucking do is point it at anybody, right? I mean, not even a cold gun or any gun for that matter, fake or not. It just you shouldn't point anything like that to anybody on a shoot ever, unless it's like directed to do so. But that's blatant fucking, careless, yeah, it's just careless. It's just very, very fucking careless to do. And for anybody who has worked in film has probably seen, including myself, has seen some careless ass shit, but not to the degree of this, where so many people failed the line of safety and checks and whatnot, just completely rolled right through it, like as if it was just fucking like another day on the shoot, without actually treating this very fucking seriously. And so that's what I wanted to talk about with y'all. You know what I mean? I want to do more podcasts for sure, but this is like one of those situations where I saw it and I'm like, I got to talk about this because I don't know how to fucking rationalize it. And the trial is still going on, so of course I'm going to be part of this, but like, more than the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp shit, this is way more interesting to me as a filmmaker because this is something that I feel that, given what the circumstances of this shoot was, regardless of what the outcome is going to be, whether or not, the armor is going to be charged with involuntary manslaughter or not, it doesn't matter. The point of it all is seeing this for how stupid it was and how blatantly fucking irresponsible in compromising the safety of so many of every single crew member and cast of that said shoot, of that film shoot. It feels silly to not have this. And people, like, I've seen even productions where they roll their eyes on people who, want to run through another safety meeting, And I feel like that's also very fucking stupid. You should always empower everybody on a film shoot, regardless of the department, to run through a safety meeting for the sake of the sanity of the person and everyone else around them who have to, work around a real ass fucking weapon. So again, it blows my mind, and I wanted to talk about it, and yeah, please let me know what y'all think. Was I wrong about anything? Tell me, So I think that's about it, y'all. I don't have anything much else to say other than that I miss you. I hope y'all are doing good. Stay safe out there, and for the love of safety.